Hey, what's up YouTube? In this video, we are going to ask AI to design us a modern skyscraper that we can recreate in Minecraft. And if it goes well, we will then add the AI skyscraper into our city. Let's get started. Could you generate an image of a skyscraper that I can recreate in Minecraft? Please. Happy face. Oh, the image is generating. Okay. What is that? It's like a Rubik's Cube. Okay, I'm gonna be honest with you. This isn't what I envisioned for a modern skyscraper, but I actually really like this. I think that we could turn this building into a really cool modern office building. Let's try it. Looking at the build, we're primarily going to be using quartz, light grey concrete, some black glass just because it contrasts really nicely, and probably not too much else. Honestly, this is pretty intimidating. This is going to be a massive build. I think we've just got to go for it. I noticed that the office building is definitely raised up off of the ground, so we have to take that into account. We'll build it a couple of rows off of the floor. The first thing that I need to make, I think, is the entrance. So that seems fairly simple. It's got these really cool steps as well. We'll add those later because I think the more important thing is to make the foundation. The office building seems to sit on some sort of squarey looking piece of building. I'm using the light grey concrete to make this. It's really simple. It's just a bunch of small windows. The only difficulty is kind of figuring out how to add depth and interest to these windows. The front of the build looks about right, so we have to move around to the side. It's really important that in these beginning stages we get the scale of this build correct, because otherwise it's going to cause a massive mess down the line. On the right side of the build, we have an entrance or exit, very similar to the front, so we're just going to copy and paste it. And all of the windows seem to be pretty much identical as well. We're also just going to fill the top in, and this is going to be the base of the build. This looks pretty good. So this is where the difficult part comes. We have just a bunch of cube-like structures that are all pushed together in kind of like a broken Rubik's Cube sort of pattern. I don't think that the design of the build is that hard to replicate. It's just kind of getting everything to be the right size and in the right position. This can be a really tricky process. It took a really long time to kind of figure out how I wanted to tackle this part of the build. I couldn't decide whether these two cubes were connected together, whether they were separated, whether the areas above them were solid glass or if they had pillars. After a while, I decided that the most important thing was to make sure that the building itself wasn't flat. That despite the fact that it is made up of just a bunch of cubes and rectangles and whatever, that we could still make it a visually interesting building. I also couldn't quite decide what this area in particular even was. It kind of suggested to me that you could get out upon this rooftop, but there doesn't really seem to be anything there, so this part itself is particularly interesting because in the corner you have two parts of the build where just a bunch of cubes just connect together, and they're all kind of like different sizes and shapes and at different depths from each other. It ends up looking really cool, but it did take a disproportionate amount of time to actually get this part sorted. At a certain point, I deemed it would be easier if we kind of just got the general shape of the building, and then from there we could refine it. Surprisingly enough, the scale of the building actually ended up very similar to the generated image, which doesn't happen very often. It's at this point that we've managed to make pretty much the entire middle section of the build, or at least the part that we can see anyway. We're keeping things nice and loose. We're leaving some gaps so that we can work on the rest of it later. Because of course, now that we have made the middle part of the building, that leaves one very important section. The top, which to my delight was really easy to make. It's just a bunch of regular looking rectangles connected together. The interesting part about this, however, is there does seem to be a missing bit in the middle, which is really cool. Later on, I plan to place an office in this upper part of the building, and each part of the office will be able to look through at the opposite parts. It's going to be really cool. You'll even be able to look down into the lower floor of the building. I'm actually really excited to tackle that. With the upper part of the build made, we are now just going to refine the middle section. We're going to fill in all of these roofs. We are going to connect it to the upper part of the building. So now we have to make the surroundings. This includes the entrances / exits out of the building. We have some really cool long steps. And there are some raised gardens that surround the entire build as well. The gardens are simply just made using trees, which I'm making myself so that they're all nice and uniform, leaves, grass, and ferns. The reference image is a little bit muddy at this point, so I'm kind of having to freestyle a lot of this. I think it still looks really good though. And now that we've made the gardens, or at least the part of the gardens that we can see, we are just going to add a bit of street around the build. I'm using stone for this. Ladies and gentlemen, it's at this point in the building process that I realised that I am dumb. I built the office building facing the wrong way. I don't know how I managed to make the entire visible part of the reference without realising I was building in darkness. But here we are. I am dumb. Luckily, this is easily fixed with World Edit. I just feel stupid. I can't feel too bad though, because I really like how this has turned out. This looks awesome so far. But we are missing a pretty big detail. The entire back of the build.
However, with my handy-dandy building knowledge,
we can make the rest of the building pretty easily, just copying the same style that we have on the front of the build. I thought it would be easiest to start at both the bottom and the top. Make the light grey foundation. That was almost certainly going to be the exact same as it is on the front and side. And also the top of the building as well. We can see it's pretty much just a big square with a hole missing in the middle, which just leaves the actual middle of the building, which was quite fun to do. Following a similar scheme of rectangles and cubes and squares, I kind of turned the back of the build into a grid and extended random portions of the windows forwards. And I also just made some windows a bit larger. I really like how it turned out. I'm doing a very similar thing on the side, but just a little bit different. Once again, we just divide it all into a grid, and I'm just going to have these bits of long wall extend forwards, and just a couple of windows extend forwards as well. Keep the variety, keep the depth, keep the theme going. That's a lot of words that end in f. Which leads us all the way up to the top of the building, where we actually get to make the structure that I talked about. Kind of just a donut, really. So we just raise up that middle part, add some glass, fill in the roof. There you go, nice and simple. I also decided to add a little bit of intrigue to the top of the build as well, extending out those center windows. The reason being is that you can kind of see it a little bit on the reference, and I just thought that it'd look a little bit better this way. Artistic choice and all that. With the build primarily complete, we can just work on the surrounding gardens. We are just keeping with the theme here. Adding a bunch of trees, grass, ferns, hedging. You guys know the deal. I also decided to extend out the central windows on the back of the build as well, just because I wanted to keep it the same. Nice and symmetrical. And after a lot of hard work, we actually have our office building. This looks awesome. Here's a little side by side. I don't think that we've done a bad job. They look pretty similar. But here's the thing. If we take a little look at the inside, we're missing an entire interior. Luckily, I know exactly who to ask about this. Could you generate an image for the interior of the skyscraper, please? Happy face. Okay. Oh. Oh no. I mean, that looks cool, but that's... ChatGPT, we're making an office building. You have not understood the assignment. That's great, but could you also generate a modern office design? Happy face. Okay, here we go. There we go, look at that. That is perfect. That is what I'm talking about. You know what, guys? This has actually worked out really well. I think that we can combine these two references and we can make an entire office. Building interior. It's impossible to use replay mod to record what I'm about to make, and this is going to take a really long time. I'll be back once my homework's done.
Many hours later.
And we're back. I have been very hard at work working on this interior, ladies and gentlemen. I'm excited to show you what I've came up with. So, despite the fact that the first reference image wasn't exactly what I was thinking, I actually used it as inspiration for the lobby of the office building. It's kind of hard to show you because of this big chunk of building in the way. Hang on. Okay, that's better. Hopefully you guys can see what I was going for. It took a little bit of imagination, but this is the central seating area with the seats, the table in the middle, the plants, and we even have this. This is a really cool design. I really like this. This is kind of like a Moroccan lamp. I think I'm actually going to reuse this in some of my other builds. I really like this for some reason. We also have the elevators, or lifts if you're feeling British. We have one either side. And we have this central point here, which isn't exactly the same as the reference, but I wanted to stick a tree in there just because it looked really cool. They're meant to be above the elevators, but this looks awesome in my opinion. On this one occasion in my entire life, we are going to take the stairs, as I just want to show you this as well. I decided to stick this in the middle of the stairs. So, fun fact as well, the elevators actually do take you all the way up to the important parts of the building, and as do the stairs, of course. So let's just move all the way up. So there's nothing on this floor because the space that we have left, like, we can't really make anything in these other parts of the build. But if we do go up to the next level and we walk around these fancy stairs, look at this. We have our office. I'm so proud of this. I think that this looks awesome. I think that this is a really good view. So if we have a look at it from this angle, hopefully you guys can see where we managed to take a huge amount of inspiration from the reference image. I really love how this has turned out. I am 1000% designing my own office building, and the inside of it is going to look very, very similar to this one. So this is kind of the open floor part of the office. You can see that we just have a bunch of desks and we have a bunch of computers and stuff just dotted around. But if we move up to the next level, we have a toilet on every floor as well, which I decided to just put a bathroom here because it actually fit. But on this level, we have kind of like a break room, which is cool, with like a little kitchen and some seating and bins and a water cooler. But this is where we have a couple more offices as well. So you could even have like a boss's office up here, but I was trying to copy the reference image, but we have just a couple more desks, and we have pretty much the exact same thing. If we flip up another level as well, we have the toilets here, and we also have a similar sort of kitchen design, but once again, this building isn't symmetrical, so we couldn't quite copy what we have down below, but regardless, it looks really cool. I just thought it'd be cool to show you that you can go in these lifts. One moment, please. And we can access every single relevant floor, including the top, from the lifts, which I think is really cool. And up here we have the design that I talked about during making this. Like, you can see down into the lower level of the office, which I think is just so cool, and also across there as well. So up here we have a little kitchen / break room, as you can see, and all the way around here we have, the other lift, which also works in the same fashion, and just a bunch of desks and a water cooler and such. Like, I'm so happy with how this build has turned out. I can't believe that we've managed to get here from the reference image. And that's pretty much it, ladies and gentlemen. That is the entire build, 100% fully completed. However, you guys know what we have to do next. We must now take our modern office, AI-generated office modern building, and add it into our city. And it's no surprise where it's going to go. It is going to go into the AI storage area just outside the city, next to the modern mansion, the suburban house, and the townhouse. We are slowly accumulating enough builds so that we can make a little AI portion of the city, which I think is going to be really cool. But until then, thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed this tutorial, please remember to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Also, consider becoming a channel member. You will gain access to loyalty badges, some fun emojis, and a monthly download for every single build used in our city. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next one. Goodbye.